That's my big thing. Teaching people how to read a label. Because I do think the benefit of things becoming mainstream is that people are becoming more aware. The downside of things becoming more mainstream is people are becoming more aware and there's a lot more marketing out there.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of companies that are creating, products that are not so clean, and they're greenwashing and they're marketing like they're clean because they know that's what people are looking for. And so there's a lot more manipulation on the market now than there used to be. And so if you know how to the basics of reading a label, then marketing won't matter.
When my heart stops, not a second sooner, I'm gonna finish what I've begun. 'Cause my heart's got a reason to believe in me and a dream and whatever may come. And as long as I'm breathing, I'll keep believing that I'm not done until my heart stops.
Finding your calm just got a whole lot simpler thanks to Reflect. This little device helps you tune into your body and regulate stress in real time. Whether you're new to mindfulness or just need a tool to stay grounded throughout the day, Reflect makes it easy and accessible. I've been really impressed by how much more connected and calm I feel using it. If you want to check out Reflect, you can use my code QTC15 for 15% off your first order at meetreflect.com. That's QTC15 at checkout. Definitely worth checking out if you're looking to feel more calm and more centered. Welcome back to Quiet the Clock podcast. I am so personally excited to be sitting across from you and having you here on the podcast. I've shared on here. We've been talking a little bit about my fertility journey, and one thing that I've learned through my fertility journey is about toxins and what toxins are doing to our bodies. So I'm personally excited to have you here because I do, and I love all your content. It's so educational, it's so informative, and it's things that we need to know. And I have lived my whole life until this fertility journey not knowing enough about toxins. So I'm so excited to have you here. Wendy, welcome to Quiet the Clock.
Excited to be here.
Before we jump into your expertise, we were talking offline a little bit more about you and sort of this recent change in your life. And one of the things I want to talk about today is about a post you put up yesterday about being in New York City and what that's done to your nervous system. So I'd love for you to start there, kind of like who you are, where you are now in your life, and this big change and transition that you've made. Because I have worked with so many people that desire a change like you've made and feel really afraid, stuck, unsure how to make that happen. And so we continue to live these lives or on these timelines or in these ways that aren't really serving us. So I'd love for you to start there, kind of share your story.
Thanks for having me here. I'm really excited to talk about my journey, but also educate about toxins, which is my favorite thing to do. Empower people, educate people. We were talking before this. I started my career as an attorney and then got into lobbying and toxins regulation. And I was very passionate about what I was doing, and I did it a lot. And definitely a self-proclaimed workaholic. Work never ended. Even though I was a single mom with 2 kids, I worked around the clock all the time.
Wow.
First mom to drop my kids at before school. Last mom to pick them up before they started charging you per the minute for not picking them up at daycare. And that was just very normal to me. It was super normal. And I had all these health issues, Hashimoto's. I struggled, with my metabolism and with my weight because of my hypothyroidism and all of these things. And I never would have imagined that getting off of that rat race was something that would make such a dramatic difference. But 5 years ago, I moved to rural Virginia to live on a lake, what I consider the middle of nowhere compared to San Diego where I lived before. And my nervous system completely regulated. I started getting deep sleep. My stress started lowering. My antibodies went down in my Hashimoto's. I mean, my body just literally started to heal itself. And the only thing I did was I got off the hamster wheel. And now, because I am in New York City, for this interview, I landed yesterday and I stepped out and I got into the city and my nervous system was like, oh my God, it's so noisy. There's so many people. It's just a lot to take in. And I've been like anxious and kind of in fight or flight.
Yeah.
And I can tell because I've been away from it for so long. So it's just really interesting.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. The awareness you have about it now. And I was a self-proclaimed workaholic. And for me, and I'm curious if for you too, it's hard to get off that hamster wheel. I think for me, there's this has been this addiction to productivity, to attaching that to success, to being comparative of like work harder than everybody else in the room, all these narratives that we were told. So it gets really hard to get off the hamster wheel. And even when sometimes I've been forced into decisions to slow down, sometimes they've been intentional, but whichever way it got me there was this, at first this discomfort with the stillness, with the slowness, and the narratives that came up of like, I'm not doing enough, I'm not productive enough. And you were sharing kind of your experience when you first moved to rural West Virginia.
When I very first moved, I paced around for weeks. I felt like I was crawling out of my skin. And I recognize that now as like I was withdrawing. Like it's literally like withdrawals. And I wanted my fix. Where was my productivity fix? Where was my noise? Where was my busyness? Where was my brunch? Where was my work? But it was COVID.
Yeah.
And we were all at home and it was quiet. And I distinctly remember the day that I woke up and something had completely changed. Like it was almost like all of the stress had left my body. I was no longer crawling out of my skin. And I remember thinking, oh, is this what being calm feels like? Like I had never felt it in my whole life because I don't think I ever had. My identity was my work. Totally. If I wasn't working and producing and I wasn't the best and I wasn't getting the accolades and I wasn't, making things happen, I didn't know who I was. And that was a huge learning curve for me.
Did it take you some time to find out or learn who you are outside of this workaholic, outside of, the accolades and being productive? Like you felt it in your body, but then did you start to build this new identity of who you are?
I did. I started valuing other things. Like really being present, like cooking with my kids or reading, I was reading like young adult books for my daughter. And then we would like talk about them. Like I was, reading Percy Jackson and things that I think I just would have never, I don't have time for that. I'm too busy. Those words came out of my mouth. I'm so busy. I have so much to do. Yes. It truly became my identity. And I do believe very, very strongly in my core that my Hashimoto's, my health issues came out of my constant stress, my constant productivity.
Yeah, I almost I'm listening to you and I almost want to cry for the version of myself that lived that too, because now I'm in this situation where I've known about my Hashimoto's now for, I learned about it after my first miscarriage. But it's like these versions of ourselves that just get so used to feeling like crap and not really realizing we're feeling like crap that it just becomes normalized to feel that way and live that way.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. People will do things that they will feel so much better, right? Whether it's, watching the sunrise, going for walks, just anything healthy in general. And it's not until they stop doing it and then feel crappy again that they're like, oh, I was actually feeling really good when I was doing X, Y, and Z. And so I just think that's a part of our pattern. But I've come so far. And so earlier this year, I had to make a decision to either move back to the city, go back to work into an office full time, or quit the job that I absolutely loved for 18 years. And there was zero hesitation. I was like, absolutely not.
Because it was going to require you to be back in an environment that put your nervous system in fight or flight.
And I'll never do it again.
And how do you feel since that?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Free. I feel free.
Okay. I was going to say this for the end, but you brought up the word because I saw a post of yours that talked about your intention for 2025 and how you wanted to feel. And I know this is everything you're already saying, I know we didn't even get to the toxins yet. And it's like everything you're saying is going to resonate so heavily with so many women. I was sharing with you offline, like a lot of the women that I know and that I've worked with as their therapists, they are these over-functioning individuals. And when we get to talk about like toxins and hormones and fertility, it's like we're working against each other, against ourselves. Like And they also want to make these changes, but don't know how. And so your intention for 2025, or the word that was attached to it, was freedom.
Yeah.
And you use freedom from a lot of things, but like what I should do, what I'm supposed to do. So I'd love for you to talk to that, because I know so many people would resonate with that.
I think that for me, it was freedom from what I thought other people's expectations were of me. It was funny. My mom, who I'm really close with, I was explaining to her, I'm quitting. I'm not going back to work. I'm going to work for myself. I'm going to do this full time. And I don't totally have a plan, but I'm going to figure it out. And she asked me, like, well, what are you chasing? What are you trying to like do here? And I said, I want freedom from what everyone expects me to be. And she said, who exactly expects you to be a certain way? And I didn't have an answer. And I realized I made it all up in my head. I literally made up this expectation of who I needed to be in my head. Nobody was telling me. I didn't grow up being told you need to perform. I didn't grow up being told you need to be productive. I didn't grow up that way. I wasn't raised that way. I made that all up in my head.
I think there's just these like subliminal societal messages that we take on, sometimes subconsciously without even realizing. And so it becomes so ingrained in us that we think it's our own voice.
Yes.
Or we think it's someone else's voice telling us that, but it's like that we adopt it as our own. And that's when it becomes really problematic if we're not attentive to it enough. I love that question from your mother.
Yeah, it was good for me to dig deep and figure out, like, okay, if I'm going to move forward and be who I want to be, I have to know who I was trying to be before.
And why.
Yeah. And so now I'm really good about, things come my way, consulting opportunities come my way, podcast requests come my way. And I always take time and I pause and I say, does this feel good? Will this bring me joy? Will this bring me?
Oh my gosh, I love that.
And if the answer is no, then it's a no.
I'm glad you said yes.
I did.
So do you feel like, okay, we're about 6 months into 2025? Are you living that intention? Are you feeling that intention?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's such validation to anyone listening that if they're thinking about making big changes, or even just want to be more reflective on what are the expectations, whose voice it is. It's like nice to hear someone on the other side of it, of what it looks like actually making the change and the bold move without a plan, or trusting you'll figure it out.
Just trusting to figure it out. And to be fair, I had my podcast already. I had already, I had a lot of lobbying experience. And so I had this skill set that I knew I could do on my own. I just needed the faith to, take the leap.
I think that's what it comes down to, right? Are we going to stay in fear? Or are we going to move with faith?
And I don't think it doesn't have to be like, what I did was very dramatic. I mean, I quit my career and went out on my own. You don't have to do that. I do think that a lot of women don't realize you can just actively choose margin in your life. During my whole day, I do this, and this. Well, you can take away a couple things. You don't have to do everything.
These are the narratives that we have to keep dismantling, or at least getting curious about. Like, okay, if you're saying I have to do this, like, why?
Why?
What's
Says who? According to who?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
What happens if we're talking about like the self-proclaimed workaholics, or like being overfunctioning or overproductive? There's no space. There's like, you're too busy to even ask the questions. Yeah.
Or think, or even process anything. So I'm really big on margin. Like, what's my margin today? Not, what's my calendar look like today?
Yeah.
I'm like, where's my margin? Where's my quiet time? Where's my time where I have nothing?
I also like to look at the day or the week now of like, what's my capacity? Because on some days, like, I am capable of a lot, and on other days, and this has been a learning experience for me. This didn't happen overnight. I have to get, sometimes it's uncomfortable to have a slower day, but honoring my capacity of like, can I actually show up for this thing or not? And I offer that to anyone listening. I think whether it's the margins or what's the capacity, just the awareness around like what are you capable of today, or and redefining success, I think, is a whole nother conversation. But
we could talk about that for now.
Yeah, I know. Let's switch gears to your expertise. Did you always... how did you get into this career, and how did this become your work? Was it always an interest of yours? Was there a personal experience that sparked the journey to
So I always loved environmental. And when I very first got out of law school, I had an opportunity to do environmental litigation and environmental law. And it was for the federal government. And it was my dream job. And I absolutely loved it. And from there, I got into toxins regulation and lobbying and how government works and how the regulatory agencies work.
That's fascinating.
Oh, I loved it. I loved every second of it. But I never related it to my own personal health. Like those dots were not connected. Like I was working in air pollution regulation or water quality regulation, but I never really thought about how that related to me and to my health and to my thyroid issues or to, fertility. Like I never put the pieces together. And then I took a job for 5 years in Europe with the federal government. And my daughter was 9 months old and had the most horrific eczema. I mean, she was in organic bamboo cloth diapers with cashmere covers because we couldn't even put waterproof covers on her because her eczema she would just crack and bleed. I mean, it was just so bad. And, our pediatrician in California, like, steroid creams, all these things, all the things a doctor will tell you, right? And I took her to an Italian pediatrician and he looked me square in the eye and said, "Are you using American products?" Laundry detergent, cleaning supplies, lotions, all of it. And I was shopping at a military base. So I was buying American products. And he said, "Throw them all away." And he gave me a list of things to buy instead. And I did what I was told. And I got all new stuff. And 6 weeks later, her skin had completely cleared up, no more eczema. And I, who had suffered from migraines for decades, hadn't had a migraine in 6 weeks. And I was like, what the hell is in these products? Like, what is happening?
It's so curious for me. So even going through Hashimoto's and you shared on your social media, like also some fertility stuff.
Yeah.
And being in the work that you did, it didn't click to you until your daughter's eczema. Mm-hmm. Wow. What was that like for you to have that experience?
Humbling. Because when I started figuring out what the things were that were so bad for our health, I'm like, that's in our drinking water. That's in our, I do that for a living. That's allowed in my lotion? What? It was more of just, I didn't know. I didn't work in personal care. Mm-hmm. That's a whole retail space, a sales space that it didn't dawn on me. It was humbling. Wow. I felt stupid. I was like, how did I not?
It's so eye-opening though, right? To even just see how quickly that shifted for your daughter. Yeah. I'm curious, I don't know if this is a controversial question or not, but I've educated myself a little bit more on toxins and what's in our food. And you give this really great example of being in a different country. It's why are these things in our products and not in other countries?
Oh, I don't think that's controversial. I talk about it all.
Okay. So let's talk about it.
In the United States, the way we have always regulated anything that goes into our system, whether it's personal care products, chemicals, food, anything, it is put it into the world and see what happens. And then if something bad happens, we'll figure it out later. It's always been self-policed in some form by the industries that are creating it. And there are some regulation, right? With food, basic things like you can't put cyanide in food. There's things like that. But with very few exception, basically the American industry regulates itself. Europe is very different. They actually have regulations in place that require companies to prove safety. You have to take it before a commission. They're called REACH regulations. They have, 20 years old-ish. And companies have to say and prove and do testing and show the studies, take it before a commission, and they do a full-blown assessment of the safety. And so through that process, it's more of a prove it's safe before you put it into the world. It hasn't always been that way in Europe, but it's been that way now for a while. Mm-hmm. The United States is still not operating that way. We have 10,000 proprietary chemicals out in the world that nobody knows what they are, what they do, or how they impact our health. And that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I've found even with my journey through the fertility stuff and in the fertility world, we're so reactionary instead of proactive. Yep. And that sounds like the difference here too, is it's let's throw it out in the world. And if something happens, we'll fix it then, or we'll figure it out versus let's be proactive of not causing harm.
Well, and I think the hardest part about being in this space and educating about toxins is we do kind of have this idea that the government would have never really allowed that. So PFAS, for example, PFAS, forever chemicals, now are linked to all kinds of cancers, fertility, and specifically in the IVF like Arena, they've done a lot of studies that show that you have better take of IVF, better egg quality, better everything, the lower the PFAS is in your blood. We know that.
What is that?
They are forever chemicals. So like your
forever
Teflon chemicals. So like what's on your nonstick pans, what's in your waterproof mascara, what's on your waterproof, jackets. And now we know it's in a lot of our textiles. It's in our drinking water. But if you've ever seen the movie Dark Waters.
No.
I mean, for 70 years, 3M has put these types of chemicals out into personal care products, into manufacturing. I mean, they're everywhere. They're literally everywhere. And what makes them waterproof also makes them indestructible. We don't even know how to get rid of them. You can filter them, but then you have to throw that filter away. We literally don't even know how to get rid of this chemical. And there's now tens of thousands of this type of chemical. It's out there. It's been out there for 70 years. Companies have made billions of dollars off of selling it. And now that it's contaminated everything, and now that we know it has all of these massive health issues, everyone's like, well, what do we do about it?
And we don't know.
Oh, well, we, drinking water regulations. Okay, well, let's, here we are 70 years later and it's, oh crap. And so I think that people have a hard time wrapping their head around, oh no, that's reality. Like that really is the way that it is, because they don't want to believe it. They just don't.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So back up to after you change all the products with your daughter, that sparks the journey. That sparks the journey. And just tell me from there, kind of when you move back to the States, maybe like what was your overhaul? I think for people listening, I know for myself, it's like, it can be very overwhelming to start to learn there's toxins and everything. And I know after my first miscarriage, I overhauled the house, but I'm sure there's still toxins, but I threw out all the cookware. I threw out all the products, and it got very overwhelming. Yeah. And I'm just curious kind of, what it was like for you when you moved back, and where does someone start if they want to start removing toxins?
I think because I am in the industry, I kind of had good perspective of, okay, well, where's the largest contamination coming from, right? So I don't think I ever obsessed about the really small things, just because when you're in the industry and you're dealing with toxins regulation, you're always thinking about where's your highest exposure, where's your real risk profile. So my brain already kind of operated okay, if I know that PFAS chemicals, these forever chemicals, is a priority for me, well, where are they mostly? They're mostly in my drinking water. So filter your drinking water, right? Get a really good drinking water filter. That's going to get rid of a ton of your exposure just by doing that one thing that is really simple. And now you can get some really good pictures. Don't go buy a Brita filter. That doesn't count. A clearly filtered, filter, you can get a picture. It doesn't have to be a $500, system. So I do think those are more accessible now. And then the other highest exposure is pans, nonstick pans, and the inside lining of air fryers, which are very popular. And so I tell people, okay, so don't drink it, get a filter. Think about what you're cooking on every day. If you're using an air fryer every day, make sure it's a PFAS-free air fryer. If you're cooking on pans every day, make sure those pans are, don't have PFAS. So I really was good about prioritizing my highest exposure and then not stressing about the smaller exposures. And I think that's what people really struggle with, because especially on social media right now, it's a wild place to be, where you have all of these people that are oh, there's, your coconut oil is contaminated with phthalates. Your, ghee is contaminated with phthalates. And, now grass-fed beef, has that. Well, that they're everywhere. But where are you getting exposed to them the most? Yeah. And the answer to that is synthetic fragrance and plastics in your kitchen. And so just being very realistic about where your biggest exposures are, because if our bodies are healthy, we can handle some exposures.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's the biggest ones that we really, if you reduce those levels, you can make huge differences.
Yeah. And I love that, because it's manageable. That is manageable to do those two things. You could just start with those two things and probably feel a difference.
Yes.
Especially for women. I mean, gosh, you can, all your makeup, all your products, all your perfumes, you could be I was throwing it all out. What about cleaning products?
Yeah. So that would be the number 3 thing that I tell people. You know, it's what you drink, it's what you eat, and then it's what you inhale. So, you know, for better or for worse, you know, houses nowadays are built very energy efficiently, which means that they're kind of airtight. And so what's happened over the last decade since we've started building homes that way is our indoor air is getting really polluted. And a lot of that pollution that is causing health issues is coming from synthetic fragrances, which are now in everything, even your trash bags. It's hard to find trash bags that aren't scented. But then your cleaning supplies. And so cleaning supplies are a really big problem because even when they're just sitting under your sink, they're off-gassing chemicals.
Oh my gosh, wait, where did I hear this story? Oh, I think it was a story told by the woman that started Branch Basics, where her son was sick and she was trying to figure it out, and she still had a box of the cleaning products. That was like the last thing, and she got rid of it, and her son was like feeling better. So that's such an interesting point. Like even if you're not using them, if they're in the home.
If they're in the home, and it's especially the ones that are like not on the cleaner side of things, right? Like traditional cleaning supplies that like I grew up, you know, Pine Sols and Cloroxes and bleach. I still think most Americans have all of that stuff in their house.
We did until a year and a half ago. Yeah.
So getting all of that, you know, out of your house, I think Americans also have this very obsessive nature about like disinfecting everything and cleaning everything. And one of the mindset shifts I always try to get people to kind of like be open-minded to is you're actually not really cleaning anything. You're just spraying toxins everywhere. And so that helps, I think, sometimes people understand like the shift. You can have something that's completely clean where you've physically removed any dirt or grime or bacteria. You don't need to like kill things with chemicals. That's not good. We don't need to be doing that. And so, and then helping people find, you know, a cleaner. And that makes a huge difference because that's your whole house.
Yeah.
So
I love how you break it down to those 3 big things because again, it feels so manageable. It feels so doable. And then maybe starting there and then finding your way to products and
one at a time.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to find new skincare that you like, because that when you start getting away from a lot of these synthetically created products, there's an adjustment. There's a reason why those chemicals are popular.
Sure.
Right. There's a reason for it.
I had that experience myself. I threw out all my makeup and then I tried to get like non-toxic makeup and I'm like, I hate it. Yeah. Like, so it's a journey to find.
And it's better now. 5 years ago.
Oh, I bet.
It was real hard. Now there's a lot of really cool companies that have a lot of great stuff. But it's still an adjustment for people. So, you know, I'm like, don't try to like get new skincare and switch to clean deodorant and find new shampoo. Like you're going to just
it's overwhelming.
One thing at a time. One thing at a time.
I don't know if it's just me being more aware. I feel like there is more information out there now. I feel like it's a hot topic talking about toxins, but I'm curious if it's a conversation that's been happening for a long time and we're just catching on. I mean, you were in the space for so long and then you had the experience with your daughter, but I feel like we're talking about it more.
Yeah,
now.
I think it's definitely in the general conversation where we were the weird ones before, right? I think it went from being a little weird and a little woo to, I think those people might not be so crazy. So yeah, I think it's hit mainstream, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
right. Empowering people to be educated is a good thing. My whole thing is, if you know how to read a label, that's my big thing. Mm-hmm. Teaching people how to read a label. Because I do think the benefit of things becoming mainstream is that people are becoming more aware. Mm-hmm. The downside of things becoming more mainstream is people are becoming more aware and there's a lot more marketing out there.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of companies that are creating, you know, products that are not so clean and they're greenwashing and they're marketing like they're clean because they know that's what people are looking for. And so there's a lot more manipulation on the market now than there used to be. And so if you know how to the basics of reading a label, then marketing won't matter.
Can you share some of that with us? Like what should people look for? And then maybe what are some like red flags to stay away from?
Yeah. So fragrance is number one, right? Like if the word fragrance, which is a protected word, Companies do not have to disclose anything that creates the fragrance in their products. And that could be full of preservatives, that could be full of endocrine disruptors, it can be full of a lot of things. So unless they actually tell you on the bottle, like this is the essential oil that it is, or this is the botanical extract that it is, if it just says fragrance and nothing else, it's not worth it. There could be phthalates, there could be lilial. There's a lot of things that are in there that are known endocrine disruptors that you just don't want anything to do with. So that's number one.
Okay.
Number two is parabens. There was that study that came out that showed that women who removed personal care products that had both phthalates and parabens for 28 days, their breast cancer, their genetic risk marker in their breast tissue, like literally went down for risk of breast cancer.
In 28 days.
In 28 days.
Wow.
So parabens, I mean, there's still some huge, and I won't say them on the podcast, but they're like major makeup companies that are like, that most people use. They're literally selling a foundation to women and they're using parabens, and parabens are a preservative. There are other safer preservatives on the market. So look,
You have to tell me offline. Or DM me. Wendy will tell me, and DM me if you want to know, or DM her.
Yeah. So
we deserve to know.
Totally.
We deserve to know. Do you think there's, oh gosh, I have so many questions. Do you think there will be a shift, or are there people working on this shift to handle this more like a European country where we'll be?
I don't think we're quite moving there, but we are, the states are actually taking the lead on this. States like California, there's East Coast states that are saying, you know what, or like in Minnesota, they just passed the law that took effect called Amara's Law, where you can't add PFAS to, the list of things was incredible. So it's not the federal government that's actually changing things right now in this space. It is the states that are saying, we're not going to allow these chemicals in our states. And, the benefit of California passing laws like that is a massive amount of profit for companies. And so if they have to change their formulations to sell in the state of California, then they just change them in general. So there have been, I worked on the Safer Cosmetics Act that passed in California 6 years ago. We have seen some movement on the federal front, but it was definitely not anything that was that what I would consider regulatory in nature, where like they were telling companies like, you can't do this anymore. It was more of, okay, you have to tell us what's actually in your products, because they didn't even have to tell them that.
That's wild.
So yeah. So supporting state law actually is a really good way to move the industry, especially if you're in the state of California.
Wow. So I wanted to shift gears, and you mentioned already kind of sort of the impact on removing certain things in terms of like breast cancer markers. But yeah, if you could speak to just what is the impact of toxins on our health, like what is happening to our bodies. I personally researched a lot on toxins and fertility, and I know there's, correlation between toxins and autoimmune and inflammation. Can you I think it's helpful to know that correlation, because then maybe there's more motivation for people to really take a look at what they're using in their homes and on their bodies and in their food.
I think this goes to why it's such a hard thing for people to accept as true. And a lot of it is, and one of the reasons why these chemicals are not regulated is it's hard to blame a single chemical. Right. So let's say you have 10 chemicals that we kind of have an idea and we know like, oh, all 10 of these are bad. And then a group of people get cancer. Women get breast cancer. Men get prostate cancer. We can't say, oh, it was it was the phthalates or it was the PFAS, right? All the companies that make these chemicals, they just kind of like,
oh, I bet.
Not it. And so because we don't have a lot of actual studies that show direct links, we're kind of reliant on these studies that show increase in risk, right? Like the one that I mentioned about removing the phthalates. Luckily, more and more and more research like that is starting to come out. Like what happens when people remove these things and remove it. And especially in the fertility world and the miscarriage world and the IVF world, where they're studying what is in women's blood.
Oh,
how, like, if there is X amount of PFAS in women's blood, what happens? Well, we know that IVF is less likely to take. We know that the miscarriage rate goes up. So things like that. Yeah.
But who even tests for that?
So there's so many grants out there from the NIH and from other places where they do a lot of these studies, universities. I teach a course called Toxin Free in 3, and I have like a bibliography of like citations from all of these studies. And it's interesting. I can talk about it all I want, but when I actually send a study to somebody who is going through IVF or has gone through, miscarriage, where it very clearly lays out, like, here's what we found. I don't want to say it's sad, but it is sad to me because you kind of notice that they're like, oh, this is real. Like, this is, and so I think it's hard because it's not our fault. It's not our fault.
It's not our fault.
It is the government is not protecting us. Companies are self-regulating based on profit. And I don't care, like, there are some great companies out there trying to do the right thing, but there are more big companies out there that do not care about your health. They care about their profit margins. And so, we have to empower ourselves and refuse to give those people our money.
Yeah, I'm hearing that about the blood work. Like, to me, again, if we were to move to a more proactive place, like, I would say every fertility doctor should be doing that blood work to make sure.
Yep.
But they don't even do a full thyroid panel, and that's a whole other discussion.
Oh, we could do an hour long just about that. I will say a really interesting study came out of Australia about PFAS in blood. And the majority of the people who have the highest levels in their blood are typically firefighters or military, because the PFAS is used in firefighting foam. So when they practice firefighting, they have very, very high exposure levels. They actually showed that if you give blood and plasma on a regular basis, it can significantly decrease the amount of PFAS in your blood. So I always tell women, especially if they're going through a fertility journey, definitely try to avoid more PFAS in your life, like the nonstick pans, filter your drinking water, things that are like waterproof clothing or like the athletic, like Lululemon type clothing. But then go give blood regularly as much as you're able to.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
Lululemon, I wear those freaking pants every day. I have to stop wearing them. Wow. That was going to be one of my questions, is for women. You kind of answered it already. The major things to avoid if you're going through fertility, or maybe even if you're thinking about upcoming egg freezing cycle or transfer. Yeah, Lululemon.
Yeah, I mean, the textile clothing conversation is a hard one, but we do now know so much of the clothing, especially athletic wear, has BPA, which is another endocrine disruptor that, does not support fertility in any way, shape, or form. And so just really trying to, as much as you possibly can, natural fibers, start with like underwear, bras, cotton, try to do 100% cotton. The thing about wearing athletic clothes that have BPA and PFAS in them, it's not necessarily that you're putting them on your skin, it's that you're sweating in them.
Right.
And so then when your body heats up and you start to sweat in them, then it'll leach the chemicals. So
mind blown. Okay, that's one thing I haven't gotten out of my... Okay. I'll ask you offline about this. What are ways... Okay, so we're starting to identify the toxins that are in our environment. What if there's like a lot of exposure? What are ways to detox? Are there ways to detox your body of the toxins?
Sure. So I'm actually not a fan of like detox cleanses and supplements. I think all of that is, I mean, I don't want to say dumb, but I think it's all dumb. I think that our body is very good at knowing how to detox. I think it's better to just support your body to do what it normally knows how to do. And so the things I am a fan of are saunas and sweating. So regular sweating, that is one of our natural detox mechanisms that our body has. Absolutely. Even just walking, rebounding, lymphatic drainage, I'm a really big fan of. So dry brushing, gua sha on your face and helping your lymphatic drainage. One of the biggest reasons why we have such a hard time detoxing is because we're so sedentary in our life.
Oh, especially now post-COVID, post-COVID.
Yeah.
Can you just explain rebounding? I just learned what rebounding is, but people might not know what that is.
Yeah, it's like, anytime your body bounces, you're really helping your lymph flow. And so you can just get one of those mini trampolines. Some people like those vibration plates, but I just like a rebounder is basically just like a mini trampoline. And
You're going to laugh. We have a trampoline in my living room for my son, and I need to get how long
Go bounce on it? 10 minutes. You're good. It's so good for you. It's really, really good for you. And, you know, all of this wouldn't be as necessary if it wasn't for a modern lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Like we're meant to be up with the sunrise. We're meant to be walking outside. We're meant to be active. We're meant to be lifting things. Our body is meant to be moving. And we sit at our desks under artificial lights all day long. And it's just not, biologically, it's just not natural.
Yeah, I know. It's like where our conversation started talking about the like workaholic to now, like we're not meant to live that way. And our environment and our environment is like really harmful
It really
to
is.
us in so many different ways, to our nervous system, to what we put in our body, what we're cooking with, what we're breathing, what we're drinking. Wow. What are some other like big pieces of advice you would give people? You said so many great things already, but if there's anything that we left out, I mean, you really...
You know, another big thing is pesticides. We haven't talked about pesticides. So I, really trying, if you're eating fruits and vegetables, to find organic. And I know that people say, oh, that's so dumb, or that's just, whatever. No, it actually, like, avoiding pesticides is a very big deal. They're not good for your health. And so that would be the one thing, especially if you're somebody who eats a lot of packaged foods. What happens when you eat a lot of packaged foods is, and you don't even think about this, but what it's made in and how it's made, the PFAS, right? Phthalates from plastics. And so just lowering the amount of packaged foods that you eat and just really trying to eat more real food, whatever that is, whatever diet, you're comfortable with. If it's real food, then you're doing great.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting when you start to become aware of this. You just notice how much, like I started to notice how much food comes in plastic, or like fruit, the vegetables can be like cucumbers wrapped in plastic. You just can't kind of, what I've always said to myself, I can't like unsee this stuff now. Yeah.
I had somebody in my membership ask me, why the ghee? Because they found like phthalates in ghee. And I said, well, when they milk the cow, it's metal, and then it goes into plastic, and then it gets, right? Like all of these manufacturing processes include plastics. PFAS makes things very smooth and protects, metals or tubings. I just did a reel on the internet where I was talking about, I got a new espresso machine, right? And here I am all these years later, and I'm still slowly swapping, right? Like this is not about jumping into perfection. Like even me, there's still things that I need to work on.
Yeah.
But I use a stainless steel mocha, which I learned to use in Italy. So that's mostly what I drink, is all from stainless steel from a mocha. But I love making lattes. And so I finally was like, you know what? I know this espresso machine that I have has plastic tubing and a plastic like brew cup. So every time I'm brewing my cup of coffee, I'm drinking microplastics and probably PFAS. And I was like, I'm an upgrade. But I needed to have the capacity all these years later to turn my attention to that.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a priority.
I love how you said it's like not the pursuit of perfection, and allowing these things to kind of happen in time, and maybe just focusing on the big three that you mentioned before. Yep. I'm sure we could all probably still look around our houses and find, even if we've done like a haul on things, that we could still look around and find things.
I always tell people it's like a bathtub, right? It's like the drain is our body's ability to detox and heal our body. And so fill a bathtub full of things, and just let's pretend that's our toxic load, right? And we have a drain, so it's slowly draining out. If you can turn off the faucet as much as possible, think about how much your exposure can lessen. And as long as that bathtub isn't overflowing, because if it's going to overflow, that's where you're going to get symptoms. That's where you're going to get sick. That's where you're going to get autoimmune. You just need to stop the flow and let your body drain. And it doesn't have to be all at one time. You just have to slowly, put it less and less and less and less. And I also think that if you try to do too much too soon, you get overwhelmed, you lack capacity, your mental health suffers. I work with people that have developed OCD and like this
Easily.
serious
Yeah.
issues over it, where I have said, you really need to get off the internet. Like this in and of itself can become toxic.
Yeah.
So baby steps.
Yeah. I think the way that you have said it here and even the way you put your content out, it makes it so you don't go down that rabbit hole. It makes it like manageable. Like you still want to be living your life and you can get to a place. We're actually talking about this in a different context, still related to fertility, about like the food. Like I've never been someone that's had disordered eating or eating disorder, but like when you start to attach it to something like fertility and you're like, don't have gluten, don't have dairy, the mental load of that, it's so counterproductive. And so kind of the same sentiment here is balance it so it doesn't become obsessive and then trigger other things, other emotions.
Focus on what's most important. And then as you have capacity, maybe turn your attention to a smaller thing.
Yeah.
And then maybe next year, another smaller thing.
What's running through my head as we're talking, I'm thinking about like my old clients, like these New York City ladies running around in their Lululemons, drinking their iced coffee out of plastic. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's constant daily exposure. Is there like one other?
It's so hard to not see it into like, especially hot things. So I do in my course, I also teach like, hey, one habit that makes a really big exposure difference is stop going to Starbucks or wherever you're going and getting hot coffee, because those disposable coffee mugs are lined with plastic and PFAS.
I know.
And so if you could just take your own. And during COVID, they wouldn't let you. But now I think it's you can literally bring your own. And I'm like, that one habit, it doesn't take a lot of mental load. It doesn't take a lot of, you have to remember to bring it. But that can make a huge difference.
Yeah, these little things are potentially like big levers. Yeah, I used to like the plastic water, but I was like doing it all wrong. But I didn't know. Like I didn't know. And that's
even that you just use the word wrong. It feels like a blame, right? Like I feel like when women say to me, oh, I was doing it wrong, I want to reframe that. You didn't know.
I didn't know. But I think it's a very difficult thing when you attach it to fertility.
Yeah, I understand that.
Or even health, right?
Yeah,
even
in general.
health. Like if someone finds out they're struggling with an autoimmune or there's inflammation, like you feel like, oh God, these things were right in front of me and I was putting them in my body or I was wearing them or I was drinking them. And it's just like, ugh. But you're right. That's a good reframe that it's not, because it's like self-blame.
And I also hope that as this movement becomes more mainstream, that I have a lot of students that take my courses that are naturopaths. They're functional medicine doctors. They're chiropractors. They're practitioners. And they say to me, I wanted to learn this so that when my patients come in and I'm talking to them about like their labs or their hormones or, thyroid medication, I can also talk to them intelligently about, hey, these are the things in your home. Could you imagine if you went to a fertility clinic and the first thing that fertility doctor did was give you a list of things that are impacting your fertility in your home?
Imagine.
I mean, I dream of a world. I dream of a world where doctors know and understand this stuff. And it's not like the studies don't exist. They're out there. But to be able to have more than 7 minutes with a patient, to be able to say, hey, these are the things that are in your home that can lead to, the issue that you're having. Why don't you start there? I mean, no
one did that. No one did that. All these women that are going through what I went through or am still going through, is like, we find it on our own. We figure it out on our own. That would be a wonderful.
It would change everything.
You should start pitching fertility clinics.
I know.
Come take my course. Even if they just had like a designated, I understand their time is limited, but a designated person that they could say, here, you take this course and every patient will sit with you and you do this with them.
Yeah. So I have a free download that anybody could have. It's called Top 25 Toxins to Avoid. You can literally screenshot it. You can screenshot it. It's like the endocrine disruptors, the carcinogens, the things that are leading to our health issues. Just screenshot it. And I always tell women, just take it shopping with you. Just little by little, start reading the back of labels, and you're going to start identifying the same things over and over and over. And there's going to be a light bulb moment where like, oh, and then you're going to feel confident that you can now go buy something and make a choice for yourself. And I feel like I don't know, maybe I need to just like make a little free ebook and just like give it to everybody I know and be like, go give this to your doctor.
Yeah, no, I think you should reach out to these doctors, but we could talk offline about that. I think you have just so much knowledge and information to help women be more proactive and preventative with their own health. I mean, and men and women too. We could probably even go on
This
about
is a huge
male infertility.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. The impact of these chemicals are also huge in men as well.
Yeah. And it's so empowering to be informed. It's so empowering to have this knowledge and being able to make these changes for your health, for your fertility health. And we need, I'm just so honored to have you here and so grateful that you're doing the work that you're doing, because it makes such a huge difference, and we need to be informed of these things. And I'm sure you have countless stories of people removing these things from their lives, from their homes, and just feeling so much better, or something like huge changing, like antibodies going down, or successful pregnancies.
Many. And I always tell people, if you know how to read a label, that basic thing, then you won't be fooled by companies that are trying to pretend like their product is safe. But you're also not going to be on the internet and terrified every time somebody says, this is in your whatever and it's going to kill you, because those things are so dramatic and so overwhelming. But if you know and you're confident in like what you know, then that won't bother you, because you'll see it for what it is. So
one last thing maybe that we haven't mentioned that you would want to leave the audience with, and then obviously tell everybody where they can find you, because I'm sure everybody's going to be running to your content and these downloads and just to get more informed.
One more thing.
Yeah, one more thing. And then where can we find you?
Oh man, I don't know if I have one more thing.
I know you said a lot.
We went over a lot. I think the last thing is community. A lot of what I see, women have a hard time making these changes because they're trying to do it alone, and they feel isolated. Their friends think they're crazy. And so find community, find people who understand you and are on the same path as you. And bond with those women, because that's very empowering too. So.
And I think also recognizing if you are feeling isolated in that, or people are thinking a certain way about you, it's probably their own projections and fears of like starting to uncover all of this stuff.
But being the only one is a very real thing that I hear people say, oh, my husband hates this. He's not on board. My friend group thinks I'm the crazy one. Like that, it's a very real thing that I hear from people. So if you can find a group, come follow me. So find me. I'm on Instagram all the time at Wendy_toxinfreeish. I have a website, toxinfreeish.com. I have a podcast called Toxin Freeish. And I have so many free resources. I have a toxin-free shopping guide that makes life so easy. And then I have a free download, my top 25 toxins to avoid. That's just so helpful. Screenshot it, take it shopping. Take it shopping. Yeah. Take it with you shopping. And my whole goal in life is to make this as easy and simple as possible and empower as many women. And everyone always says, why do you talk to women? Why is it women centric? Women make the shopping decisions in their house. That's just
we are the ones.
We're the ones.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Wow, Wendy, thank you so much. This was amazing and so incredible. And I just appreciate you being here. I've been using fusionary formulas lately, and it's been such a helpful addition to my wellness routine. Their turmeric-based formulas are designed to support inflammation, joint health, and overall vitality. Perfect if you're trying to feel better in your body naturally. I love how clean and powerful their ingredients are. You can use my code QUIETTHECLOCK to get 15% off your first order at fusionaryformulas.com. That's Quiet the Clock at checkout. Definitely worth trying if you're looking to feel your best from the inside out. Hey guys, I'm Beth. Thank you so much for tuning in to Quiet the Clock. If you want to hear more episodes and learn more about how to dismantle societal timelines, live life on your own terms, live life fully and authentically, subscribe to our channel on YouTube, and you can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Quiet the Clock Pod.
You guys, I'm really excited. We just created all this amazing merch. And so if you're loving the podcast and you want to support our cause and continue to hear amazing episodes, please support us by buying some merch. I am living in these sweatshirts every day. We have a range of colors. We have hoodies, we have mugs, we have hats, we have journals. We have all of the things, and I love having them on because it's just a reminder to quiet the clock, to slow down, to like let life unfold and be happy. So there's meaning and purpose behind wearing it too, which is a nice reminder. So check out our website, quiettheclock.com, to get your merch.